Good morning. I am here with powerful leader, industry advocate, and beacon of awesome energy, Ashley Athill. Thank you so much for your time today. We're going to chat a little bit about your background, about being a small business in the cannabis industry, and a bit about your cultural history. Thanks for
Thank you.
joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Dan. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
So let's start out with your lived experience. Tell us about the growth of Harvester. Tell us about how you got involved in the cannabis industry, and let us all know who you are.
Okay, so let me start off with Harvester. Harvester is a cannabis processing facility, and we're located in Whitby, Ontario. We have about 4,000 square foot of space and a potential to expand to about 10,000 square feet. But we're doing the opposite of most individuals in the space, and we're taking baby steps to grow our operations. We really are just focused on keeping our overhead low while we ramp up our distribution when we actually penetrate the markets. We're implementing as well robotics to keep our labor costs under control. So I'm very excited about that. And we also produce pre-rolls and other smokable products with a small team of 6, including our awesome quality assurance person. And in summer 2023, we'll be entering the Ontario market with pre-rolls and edibles. And our products are currently already available in the central provinces and northern territories. So that's that for Harvester. When it comes to Ashley, Ashley is a corporate stoner, an educator. Ashley is curious. Ashley loves the plant. I'm a cultivator. I'm a legacy cultivator. I am an individual who decided to go the difficult path of of moving in towards the cannabis industry. And my curiosity has led me about 10 years heavy into this industry, and I still love it. So I am the plant. The plant is me.
That's amazing. You know, we were lucky to interact at a meeting with some political stakeholders and industry stakeholders in Toronto not so long ago. And your voice was so informed, so passionate. You speak for small business, you speak for diverse business, and you do it with such finesse. So your voice is so appreciated. And thanks for sharing it with me today. And I'm interested on that topic, how your community and your background, your life path sort of set you up for this kind of leadership success. It's very empowering.
Yeah, if we're going to be talking about definitely my culture and then forwarding it onto my community, I'm of Antiguan and Jamaican background, so definitely cannabis was not a taboo in my household.
Oh,
So,
lucky you, lucky you. That's great to hear.
but we always respected it and we always used it in moderation. That being said, I was brought up by farmers and educators. And, the farmers instilled the work ethic, the educators kind of gave me that finesse that you were mentioning before. And, I learned a lot from my grandmother and my uncles, especially when it comes to cultivating just fruits and vegetables. And so, of course, I was that mischievous kid and I got a cannabis seed and I just popped it into the ground and saw what happened.
She's magic like that. The nature
Just
does its
magic like
trick.
that. So that allowed me to understand the plant, and I just decided I got engulfed into the plant. I really respect the way it grows and what it does for people, and I just got entrenched into it to the point where it became an obsession, and it's still an obsession up to this day to understand how this plant can benefit us. So when I was younger, for sure, I was growing weed, and for sure, I was selling weed on the street since I was in grade 7, and I never hide that because that's just my lived experience, as you say. But I did the regular path that most individuals go through. You go to high school, you go to either college or university, you go get a corporate job. I did all of those things, with the exception I always had a cannabis as my side hustle. And so I was always selling cannabis, but it would change from teachers to, executives to whoever. And, that was the one thing that remained consistent in my life. And so when I noticed that the cannabis industry was going to be opening up in Canada, I was engaged. I was ready for it. And I remember seeing early clips on CBC about one of the first licensed producers. Um, I forgot what the name was, but I do remember seeing Chuck Rafishi part of that. And I was like, how can I get in? I need to be a part of this. So I decided to go to my local watering hole, which is the Hot Box in Kensington Market, at a historic space in Toronto when it comes to cannabis. And I was able to not even just meet Abby Roach, but as well have the pleasure to work with her. She hired me to be the very first girls' school teacher. And this was at the height of legalization. And so I put together a curriculum in about 2 weeks, and I got people into that class. And it didn't take a lot for me to bring people in, because people are naturally drawn to the plant. People are naturally drawn to the smell. And we serviced everybody from 18 to 80 years old, Black, white, Chinese, Indian, it didn't matter. You might have a disability, you might have a mental health disability, it didn't matter. You are always welcome to come and learn from us at Hotbox, and as well do afters, which meant Hotbox. So that was always a good time. From there, I decided to pivot and move into a business that I called Sensi. And I actually serviced about me and a group of 6 BIPOC individuals. We actually serviced about 300 small to medium-sized enterprises. And the way that we actually provided our service was teaching HR departments about medical cannabis and how individuals who actually at that time of legalization had a medical cannabis license, how they would be dealt with in a professional setting if they are utilizing the cannabis at the workplace, excuse me. And we received a fantastic feedback. We got like clients. I think I mentioned I serviced about 300 small, medium-sized enterprises. It was phenomenal. So at the end of the day, for sure, we got money, but we also were able to feel like we contributed to humanity, because we knew that we were going to be helping individuals who were medical patients not to either get reprimanded or fired at their jobs. So I'm very, very proud about that.
Wow, that's amazing. And thank you for that service. I agree that the confluence of good business and good human skills, good value skills upgrading, like to go to those grow courses, you teach a man to fish, you teach a person to fish. It's so amazing that then they can create that medicine in so many cases for themselves. And educating HR departments. Tantalus Labs is blessed to have quite a cannabis-friendly work environment. Our policies are quite loose because we trust our people to go out and be effective. And as you say, corporate stoner, I identify as well as a pretty high-performing stoner, and we're out there, accountants, lawyers, creatives, all kinds of people, crushing it, smoking good every day.
That's it. Removing the stigma.
To change tone a bit, I'm interested in systemic friction that you encountered as a BIPOC individual on your way up, on your come up, raising money, those kinds of things. Talk me through about how that experience has been for you.
It's been an uphill climb. I had to jump in with both feet into this endeavor. And I knew at that time, especially at the peak of legalization, that it would be extremely difficult to get a lot of people on my side to invest money into my organization. So I was very lucky at the time. I did have investment property that I was willing to let go of. And I decided to invest in myself, because if I don't, who will? So I essentially sold my house, and we started a micro cultivation, micro processing facility, which we have now. And it obviously it's self-funded, but even though we were blessed enough to actually have that starting up funds, we also reached out to family members and friends to help us support us through the way. That being said, we also had some other challenges through the licensing process. I think I mentioned previously in a couple of other events that I've gone to, is that these regulations, and this is back at the peak of legalization, are pharmaceutical grade regulations. And I did not have the background in pharmaceuticals. I just knew how to grow weed. So essentially, I had to literally have my nose in those books for hours on end for me to depict what they were saying. So that was a challenge for me. Also, another challenge that might be a little bit new is that part of licensing, we actually have to notify fire, ambulance, and police of our location and whereabouts. That was not a challenge, like externally, but internally, that was a huge challenge. And the reason why is because my brother, who is also my co-founder and partner, we actually had to physically go to the police station and tell them where we're located and that we're going to be growing weed in their backyard and they can do nothing about it. So picture two Black kids from the hood going to a police headquarters and telling them that. Now, thankfully, we had an awesome police officer that was open. He knew about the new laws that was happening, and so it went smoothly. But I will tell you, us actually traveling to the police station, I was sweating. My brother was sweating. Our heart were beating. We were having anxiety because of not what has happened to us in the past, because thankfully we were quite safe when we were younger, but the things that we've seen that police have done to other people within our community. So we inherently took that in. And, it really kind of gave us perspective on not even the fact that we're very privileged to be in this position right now, but the fact that we're also in conjunction facing our worst fear. It was an extremely intense moment, something I'll remember forever. But I'm so grateful for that police officer being such a cool, level-headed gentleman. So that's one of the challenges that one would have to deal with. I guess on top of the fact that, and this is still true to this day, and this connects with the financing, is that you have to have a property completed before you can actually press send on the application. So that means all your equipment, your rooms, everything, QAP, everything has to be in alignment. And if you take into consideration the amount of money that, let's say, Black, Indigenous, BIPOC entrepreneurs have versus other types of entrepreneurs, holding a facility for, at the time, was probably about 6 to 8 months, is quite a challenge. So, we were able to spearhead that, thankfully from our friends and our family giving us support as well, so that we could actually hit that finish line. And thankfully we did.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. Police violence in and around your community is an issue that isn't explored enough. I really appreciate your courage and openness and sharing that on stage. Like, that's a huge conversation, and thanks for sharing it with me today. I'm also with you on the wording of the regs, and I think partly because of feedback like yours and others, those regs became a lot more accessible and more simplified. So thanks so much. We talk about small businesses getting on the playing field, and I think it has become a more effective methodology of recognizing different risk levels at different scales of business. That was really intrinsic to the Cannabis Act at the outset, and it wasn't always going to be that way. So I think that's really important and impressive. But I'm interested in your take on cannabis policy in general and how financial policy, economic policy, regulatory policy either supports or inhibits diverse enterprises and ultimately small businesses. What could be improved?
Well, if we're speaking as of right now, March 1st, 2023, it is extremely difficult to hold on to even a micro cultivation processing facility simply because of some of the regulations surrounding excise tax. As I don't know if your viewers are familiar, but we're looking at essentially like $1 a gram off of every gram that you sell. And so that is when you're taking into consideration your financials and how you're going to be projecting in the future, that's a huge cut out of our revenue. And so I hope, and I know that you are actively taking steps and C3 is actively taking steps to ensure that the excise tax is being reformed, so that small players like myself and at Harvester can actually survive and as well pay our employees. Because I wanted to show, like, I also want to like illustrate for you like the trickle down effect of that. Because if we're talking excise tax and I have the ability to save, I don't know, maybe 50 cents from that dollar, I'm just putting a general number out there, 50 cents from that dollar, that 50 cents can turn into an individual's part-time salary or full-time salary here, which in turn, if we're talking about community and engaging with community members from the illegal space or BIPOC or wherever the case is, that actually allows for more people to fall into the legal framework. And that will also ensure that more people in our community can raise out of poverty and have a better quality of life. So definitely, you know, we all want to hit our revenue targets. We all want to make sure our shareholders are happy. But beyond that, we can see how just the smallest change to excise tax can actually impact a company, but as well community as a whole.
That's amazing. And I'm privileged to have conversations like these with about 120, small to medium enterprises across Canada. Most of them are sort of between 5 and 30 on the size of their teams. So we're really talking like genuinely small businesses, and the impacts that they have had and the impacts that they want to make on their oftentimes rural, oftentimes economically marginalized, oftentimes transition economies. It's all about creating good jobs. It's all about creating jobs in many cases that have benefits plans, or they have living wages, and like that's more challenged in an urban environment for sure.
Yeah.
But policy that empowers those businesses, we are the oftentimes unsung heroes of the cannabis industry, and I'm proud to represent that. I'm proud to represent that with you. And feeding your people, man, that's the thing that keeps me driving hard. It's what the whole game is about. I'm so proud of my team. It sounds like you're so proud of yours.
So proud. And I'm so like, they rode with me, you know, over the big challenges and, you know, the small little bumps in the road, they rode with me. And there's nothing more important than the team that surrounds you. I think I mentioned this last time. It's never the individual, but it's the network. And, you know, that a part of my network is my team. And I'm just so grateful for the support that they've given me, but as well, you know, the effort and the work that they are doing. Keep in mind as well, my team is about 70%, I guess you could say, BIPOC. So, you know, they're quite aware of how to roll joints. They're very aware. You know, I also want to bring a little bit of light into that because, you know, we might laugh at it a little bit. Like, hey, you used to have this job back in the day before it was legal. Well, now they have a job that will pay them. You know, they can pay their taxes. They can make sure that their kids are fed and sent off to school by doing the exact same thing that they did years ago that might have been illegal and that might have put them in jail. So there's a huge opportunity within that.
Well, I think Canadians of all walks of life deserve to participate in the potential financial success of this industry, and no one more than those that have been historically disproportionately affected by the harms of prohibition. And so that's empowering. Aside from excise tax, do you have any thoughts on policy changes or even attitude changes that could better empower diverse participation in small businesses in Canadian cannabis?
Yes, absolutely. And that will just fall into the edibles silo. I think increasing the cap that currently Health Canada has at 10 milligram, to increase that cap, and I'm just putting this out there, Health Canada, maybe 50 milligrams, maybe 100 milligrams per unit, just putting it out there. It will not even just bring new customers into the legal space, but it will actually as well intrigue a lot of individuals who want to actually work with food in the legal space. And I think that is a huge miss that I hope that they're seeing gradually. Eventually they'll see, but that's a huge policy change that could really make massive impact within the Canadian cannabis industry. Also, I wouldn't mind seeing regulations change surrounding sustainability packaging. I think sustainability packaging is huge, and shout out to Marna for all the things that she's doing with sustainability packaging. But it needs to be more readily available, even to small entities like mine. I also would like to support the earth and environmental, environmental focus, and we. But the only challenge is for us, and I'm just babbling a bit, but the only challenge for us is the cost of sustainable packaging. So if the government could potentially give some either grants or some incentives to producers that actually create packaging, which could make it a little bit more affordable for licensed producers like ourselves, that would be just fantastic.
That's really great insight. And those kinds of good social good behaviors being incentivized, that's like the greatest effect that positive policy can have. So super interesting. I'm also super down with cannabis sustainability. It's kind of been one of our things from the get-go. And we didn't see any incentives around high efficiency greenhouse or using sunlight or using rainwater. And maybe that's a battle for a later day. We got to get this excise tax right. And I appreciate we're both on the forefront of that. But point taken, if you're listening, Health Canada, listen up. Sustainable packaging, we all want it. CRC lids are where we get stuck because that's like child resistance is a different kind of engineering and mold and all that.
Right.
But we see them, and yes, they're usually quite a bit more expensive, which is really tough in such a thin margin environment where we're hard pressed to invest in anything but the most efficient packaging we can find.
Yeah. Can I suggest one more thing?
Yeah, hell yeah. Let's keep them going. You're a wealth of knowledge, Ashley. That's why you're here.
I truly want to see Canada remain as a leader in cannabis on a global scale. I know I am a micro, but I should have the ability to work with organizations like Dentalis Labs, or other organizations that actually do export. I think that it's important that there is some type of pathway or some type of team that one can work with so that the flower that we're producing can be exported. I think it's not even just going to balance out how much inventory is within Canada, but I also think that it will actually engage more people to get into the cannabis industry. And I know this might sound a little bit odd because it's like, oh, export, right now there is a lot of, I guess you could say, drama going on in Jamaica. And one of the big dramas is that there is a licensed producer down there that has the ability to import and export. And a lot of the Jamaican farmers got really upset about this because they're like, why can we not export? Like, why is this person getting special permits? And just based on the response alone, it's been in about 6 Jamaican newspapers. And people are upset. People want to engage in Canada. And I understand that there's a lot of, and it's not a negative thing, a protectionist environment within Canada. We want to keep our small players still viable. And I'm a small player. I want to be viable. But I still think that there is ways and means that we can work with other countries, whether it be with caps or anything along those lines, so that we can truly kind of open up those doors to collaborations with other countries that are legal around the world. There's a lot to that, but I still think that there is an opportunity for us to grow as Canadian cannabis firms internationally.
I agree. And we were told sort of at the outset that Canada would take a global leadership role. I think global expectations have maybe been slower too, and it's always a long game in that way. but I believe that the small producers that I speak to and the whose cannabis I smoke and who I'm in the company of, we have something worthy of sharing with the world. We have
Yeah.
something worthy of the kind of regional association of quality. We're starting to see those trends, and maybe you and I can have a later conversation about the practicalities of some of the supply chains, because I think
Yeah.
I can give you some tips.
Sure.
But this has been so informative. I really appreciate you spending your time, double the time, in fact, to share your thoughts with us. And in closing, you're a leader. You've empowered yourself. You've been empowered by others. What would you say to the next generation of cannabis entrepreneur, maybe from your community or in the shoes of your younger self? What are the key personality traits or habits that you would recommend that they lean into?
I think that's such a great question. And I'm just putting this on the side. My co-founder and I, we actually own a non-for-profit. It's called Seed Initiative, where we actually help individuals find jobs and as well mentor them if they so choose to get into the cannabis industry. So this is something that I talk to a lot. I think anybody who wants to be in this industry has to have a serious work ethic. You should be very knowledgeable about cannabis, whether it be growing, whether it be processing, extracting, whatever. You have so many niches that you can get into. I also think that it's extremely important that you remain curious. And curiosity for me is that space where I feel like I can thrive and as well remain productive and on the ball because I'm truly engaged in what I'm doing. So curiosity is a huge piece for me. And I think as well, like, you have to build your network. It took me years to build a network within this space. And I started at the very beginning, right? But now there are so many people within the cannabis space that are willing to network, and there's so many conferences available. Like, the world's your oyster. So I just encourage you to take that first step, be prepared, stay curious, work hard, and you'll get to where you need to be.
Wow. I'm pumped up now. Like, I'm ready to go run through a wall, get these sales out, get these fires put out. Ashley, you're a magnet for positive energy and power, and I greatly appreciate our time together. And keep up the good work. Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you. And I really appreciate you having me. And can I just say one more thing to, the growers at home, if you don't
Of
mind?
course.
Here's a little tip that I learned from a family in South Africa. For anybody who's looking to grow their own medicine, yes, we're producers. I don't want you to, grow your own medicine. But for those who want to, if you put the seeds in your mouth and cover it with saliva, it becomes your own medicine. Put it in the ground, plant
Wow.
it, and it's yours.
Oh, that is amazing. Great close. Thank you so much, Ashley, and I'll talk to
Thank
you soon.
you.